The True Story of Gina Hall, Video 12. For Gina. Gina was the reason her disappearance did not fade away in 1980. Also, my dad. Gina's genuine innocence and goodness touching the hearts of those who knew her and came to know her, like the law enforcement officers who spent their personal days off searching for Gina, a young girl they had never met. All of the authorities never gave up. The multitude of caring family friends, our hometown community of Coburn in Wise County coming together to raise money so my dad could offer a $10,000 reward to locate Gina's body, bringing strangers to the woods to help us search. My family is forever grateful for all the people and authorities who worked tirelessly for Gina. Those dedicated people who serve. Those who were not part of the interconnected web of influencers, elusively seeking to hide truth, compromising the principles of the caring, respectful majority of those good people living in this small town community. The amazing efforts of so many towering over those few. That was the essence of Gina's light through the dark hours. Compassion, kindness, love, truth, justice. And that was exactly how and why Epperly came to be arrested, tried, and successfully convicted. For decades, my family and I have met with the parole board members in every parole hearing, every 1 to 3 years like clockwork, and thousands of people always stepping up, also sending their letters requesting denial before those hearings. The whole family never let go of our efforts to keep Epperly locked away, and those rulings, not always a landslide. No, once just one vote kept him from being released. This focus on fighting Epperly's parole requests, a constant reminder of what had happened to Gina, overshadowing our memories of Gina and the amazing, sweet person that she was and is. In parole-eligible situations like this, families of loved ones never get to have closure. And why should a murderer who hides the victim's body from their loved ones even be allowed to have a parole opportunity? It does not seem right. And because of the nature of the crime against Gina and its notoriety, occasionally someone will write about her life and her case. About 15 years ago, someone came forward and they were writing a movie screenplay, Hazel Hollow Road, something like that. I knew then that we would have a problem one day with that old story carrying forward. So I went to see an attorney to see if there was anything the family could do. And I learned that basically a dead person has no rights, that Gina's story is anyone's to tell as they deem. And that story, for the most part, would really only disturb us, Gina's family, because bystanders really don't have a way to know truth from fiction. The news articles in the past decades, they were always repeating that same old story and written about the story that I say was written by my sister's killer and his best friend. But it did no real detrimental harm until now. Epperly is getting old, and parole could be on the horizon. He gets 2 shots now, every 1 to 3 years. And that old story does not tell the real truth of what he really is. Not who, what. So we must find proof of one of his other victims. Those families deserve peace also. The continued simplified version of Epperly's crime against Gina is a current concern. Continuing to believe and repeat the inaccurate story that Epperly is just a rapist who lost his temper in a one-time fit of rage because a girl refused his sexual advances. That is a very real concern. It is wrong to continue to tell this story as if it is the whole truth, because it minimizes the extent of the reality of his truth. In November 2019, I brought a forensic anthropologist to Virginia. Bring him to Virginia. A process not fully understood in the mainstream, but I said, why not? What do I have to lose? Well, it was a very amazing experience. The doctor and I spent 2 days covering a lot of the New River Valley, checking over at least 50 different locations. And I am an intelligent woman. I watched, I observed cautiously, and I know what happened. I do not care whether others believe that instrument works or not. And if I am wrong, I will be the first to admit it. That's who I am. But what I witnessed is world-changing. I can only hope that one day his instrument gets used by many. How amazing our world could be if we can accomplish finding the victims and getting the bad guys quicker. I dream of a world where we can respond immediately when a child is lost or taken. In January 2020, I then brought in a team of certified cadaver dogs from a highly recommended group from Florida. One of the dogs specifically trained in older human remains detection. After validation of the exact spots, cross-referencing the dogs and the instrument's findings, I began excavating one of the confirmed 8 locations for Gina Hall. Unfortunately, in 2 of those same areas, the instrument registered for another 14-year-old missing Roanoke girl we were also looking for. A teenage girl labeled as a runaway in 1977. And to mention, the cadaver dogs alerted at several other places in those same general areas, where there would be no reason to alert to a clandestine grave. What I found most concerning is a ritualistic pattern that seemed to emerge, like a valley, like Psalms 23. And I know there is so much more to be known. So yes, I do choose to correct the inaccuracies others continue to repeat, more now than ever. I choose to tell the case facts so that we can begin to look in the crevices, to search for the hidden secrets of Epperly and his real truth. And I will continue to do what is right to honor my sister, for Gina, to tell Gina's truth. Some, though, still wonder why after all these years. Well, I would say, why not? One of those Johnny-come-lately experts recently called me up, same one who said inside car parts break all of the time. Same call, very disrespectful, said he had been watching me for the last 3 months and asked me outright if I was seeing a counselor, because I must have some kind of post-traumatic stress from carrying guilt for decades. I guess he's judging my recent actions with the doctor, or maybe just his reaction to my voiced concern as to how my sister was portrayed. He continued to insult me by saying that my daddy gave me my business, adding that I must have man issues, that I hate men, and that all of my girlfriends are just a bunch of women who believe the WW wrestling is real. That was brazen. Wow. Of course I gasped, genuinely. And then I thought, who are you to know who I am? And for Gina. Who are you to know Gina, for that matter? So this is who I am, in case someone is wondering why I will dig up all of Pulaski County if I have to. I have been blessed with a life fully lived, but one that did not come easy and required a lot of diligence and persistence and hard work, dedication as a mother and a wife. And it is those same qualities, including integrity, that has helped me figure all of this out. I own my own business, which I built myself over the last 3 decades, in an industry working alongside many phenomenal men and women, serving others, and recognized in my industry as being one of the top 1% in the world. Not just once, 12 times. For perspective, there's only about 30 people out of 19,000 that can say they've accomplished this in my circle. I have had an amazing life serving others. But let me tell you who I really am. I love God every moment, every day. I am a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And I will shout that and have no reservations. And if somebody wants to think I'm crazy for it, go more power to you, because I will shout that message in the miracles from these mountains of Southwest Virginia. And I love my girlfriends, old and new. Those women he refers to are the ones where he's been watching that share their heartfelt comments about Gina. I'm honored to call these women my friends, and I am positive Gina would be too. Please take a minute and go to my website or social media site and zoom in on that miracle photo, the same picture that is on the front cover of the Miraculous Journey A Day Made in Heaven, and see for yourself the message is in the miracles. And maybe you will see the why of who I am. So that is my background, in case anyone who has not read my book wonders, who is this lady sharing her personal experiences about her murdered sister in these videos? Who is this lady shouting the truth from the mountains of Southwest Virginia? Well, I am just a sister who cares. That's all. I care about truth, which is exactly why I have shared the information I know. What one chooses to do with it, hear, see, it's their choice. An Appalachian author named Tom Fugit said it best. What happens when you put 15 tanks of pure oxygen into a basement full of natural gas? Absolutely nothing until there is a spark. Well, my spark has always been that composed story. And it ignites every time the lies about my sister are repeated and often embellished in books and podcasts and news articles, old and current, especially those in the last decade. I read page 33. Another spark. No coincidence. Those who have read The Miraculous Journey knows that one of the most applicable Bible verses is Jeremiah 33:3. When I call on God, He shows me what I do not know. That composed story that began in 1980, that Gina called me from the lake, that was the truth. She did call me. But the story would continue to be exaggerated and expanded upon, picking up on the killer and his best friend's story, without any regard to Gina's character, her honor, and quoted as though I was the one that actually told them this version. My sister called me and told me that she left the Marriott with the man named Steve to be with the man to go to a cabin on the lake to be with him. One newspaper even stating that she stayed 2 nights. Even after my court testimony of the actual words of our phone conversation, the story was never corrected. So I have always known since 1980 that to tell a complete story about anything being investigated, a lot of assumption, conjecture is used, because a story has to be written and told in a way that entertains the reader, even though sometimes the facts cannot be known. like a conversation between two dead people, when those people aren't even alive to tell you what they actually said. So fill-in happens. But even without the problem of fill-in, specific twisting of words or words taken out of context, like my phone conversation with Gina in the 1980 newspaper articles, once written, it carries forward as if it's fact. The source of fact still used today. And now we have a new sensationalized part, the conjecture of what happened inside of the Marriott, the dance scenes. The most egregious, though, would be to actually interview someone, hear their story, their truth, their words, and still not listen, still not change it. It is a slippery slope going from journalism to fiction. I can guarantee you if someone quotes me as saying my sister would never have left that bar willingly, somebody wasn't listening. Because I would never call the Marriott Lounge a bar. Connotations, conjecture, fill in, a bar, a secluded cabin, willingly, with him. Yeah, I learned in 1980 how I could say something, anything, and that something would be twisted to sell sizzle, because that is what sells, sensationalistic sizzle. I was asked in 1980, did you call the psychic? Well, I said the honest answer, yes. I was the one who made the actual phone call to that psychic out west, and that is it. I dialed, the old-fashioned phone. And somehow, it is now my idea that I brought this psychic to the case because I watched Phil Donahue. I've never seen Phil Donahue in my life. From a family's view, we not only have those factual inaccuracies becoming more prevalent, we also have the ghost hunter shows sensationalizing Gina's life. We have numerous podcasts basing all of their information off of everybody else's inaccurate information, or the internet, or the news articles. Sensationalism. A lot of inaccurate information throughout the years, always told as if authoritative. Yet so many facts from 1980 were never known to the public. What disturbs me and Gina's family the most is the reality of how people tell stories. Stories they may not have lived or have no way to know what actually transpired. And we really don't. And often fill in parts to make the story a sensationalized story, no matter the people in the background that are living in a nightmare that never ends. In early 2019, I decided to attend a book-related panel presentation in the New River Valley about Gina's case. I wanted to go see for myself because I had been told by others about an earlier public presentation near there, and concerned, I asked a Virginia State Police investigator to come along with me, and we rode up together. We sat on the back row quietly, observing and listening. It was during that presentation that I first heard about a movie deal being discussed about Gina's life. Early in 2019, the presentation screen entertaining the audience, with actors' pictures like Harrison Ford joking who would play who. I sat there and I wondered, how will they portray Gina? The best friend story of Gina dancing gleefully with him, with Epperly, leaving with him happy and willing? Or the one-sided story that her killer told about what transpired at the lake house, creating the lies of a consensual relationship? What about the violence? How would that be visually portrayed? Really, no words to explain how I felt sitting watching that dog and pony show. I hope that if anyone ever does make a documentary or a movie about Gina's life, I challenge them to be honest, to be brave enough to stand up in this battle of good versus evil, to tell the whole story, all of it, both sides, but Gina's story, her true story, for Gina. So yes, I choose now to tell the facts the public never knew. I am sure those associated to 1980 and Gina's case question why. Why are you doing this, Delana? Well, I speak up because no one else will. That is the why behind it all. And yes, I have always been an advocate for women's issues, considering that my own life experiences included my 18-year-old sister becoming a victim of a heinous crime committed by a 28-year-old man. But that does not make me a man-hater. That makes me an Epperly hater. But even that was short-lived. In 2016 and 2017, the journey freed my heart. No more hate, no more unforgiveness. Anger? Yeah, I can still have anger. I wear teal today in honor of all the victims of sexual assault. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And during this month, people across the United States raise awareness about sexual violence, how to prevent it, how to support those who are affected by it. Current stats today are still astounding. According to the Department of Justice, 1 out of every 4 female college students will be a victim to some type of sexual assault before graduating. And the ACLU estimates that at least 95% of campus rapes in the United States go unreported. So this is not just an old female issue. It is very much still an issue today for both genders. A starting solution might be that all of the very, very good women get together with all of the very, very good men, and stronger together we begin to change a centuries-old mindset. Progress, but so much further to go. I am reminded that public image and it takes precedence because I experienced it in 1980. In those early, distraught beginning days, this strong-willed tomboy barged into the university president's office, demanding an explanation as to why we were not getting the support I felt like we needed, that my family needed. A few weeks later, I returned to that same president's office, questioning how had Epperly ever been allowed to be employed on campus, having been charged, not convicted, but charged of rape twice. A public relations nightmare for everyone except the victim and the victim's family and friends. When I saw Gina's case file, it was clear that there had been multiple reports made by women. Stephen Epperly's name even recognizable by campus police at schools in the area. Women raped by Epperly reporting, but no charges ever pressed. Fear of Epperly ruled those victims' decisions. But also other kinds of fear come into play. Fear that no one will believe you, fear of what others will say about you, self-blaming that somehow you the woman, caused it to happen. Or the worst, fear of victim blaming. Victim blaming is never okay. And in my opinion, a recent account regarding my sister's life, I do personally interpret as victim blaming. Embellishing the unknown or the untold facts surrounding the night my sister was sexually assaulted. Some might say, well, how can you know this without her murdered body as evidence? Oh, well, Epperly's own words in his statement mirrored his consistent rape mode of operation. Ritualistic. See video 3 titled His Name is Steve. Epperly's own words he used in his account I did not know until I saw them in 2016 when the journey began. When you choose to tell about people's life and tragedy, then it is important to get it right. And even then, I still struggled with the decision to share the facts that I knew from the case because people have lives, and they make mistakes, and they move on with their lives. But the more I would discover about that night's events and what transpired and the monster that we're really dealing with, I would just think of my sister Gina and ask myself who else would be her voice. It's just not right. And I kept asking, why would everybody keep lying? Why did they lie then? I believe part of this process has been for all of us to learn more. And when we do learn more about that night, it will probably blow our minds. What is the something still to be known? I guarantee there is more to know. And I guarantee that there is not a single other person in this world who would have read those facts from one end to the other as I did, absorbing every little detail as only a loving family member could. That's a lesson for change. Because the eyes of a loving family member who knows the victim could help with some of these cold cases if they're strong enough to do it. There is no blame for what we did not know in 1980. No blame. Gina was murdered, and that we can never change. Which is why in the book, my first book, I intentionally did not use some of the people's names, instead referring to them as best friend and trusted buddy. People associated throughout the initial days of Gina's disappearance. I wanted to talk with them first, before the Miraculous Journey A Day Made in Heaven released, and to tell them what was coming. A second book full of facts from the case, some ignored, some glossed over, some changed, some hidden, some relevant, some not. The tiniest pieces of the chronological puzzle. Most of the factual minutiae, like that, regarding Gina's case, I pulled out of The Miraculous Journey to later be released in the companion book, Web of Lies Unveiled, A Day Made in Hell. Last year I spoke to Bill King, the best friend. I asked him earnestly to please go see the Virginia State Police investigator. It's been over a year. And I suggested the same when I visited with the trusted buddy Jan Fisher in June 2019. I shared my opinion that there might just be a tiny little detail he would want to address with the police, like, in my opinion, the conflicting, maybe coached statements. His response was a redirected focus towards the police, saying they should have done more in 1980. Interesting, I thought. So let's recap. So according to Epperly and King, King went out to the Marriott parking lot to give Epperly a key so he could take Gina to the lake house. And Gina left willingly with Epperly to go to the lake house. And Gina and Epperly were alone until King and Robin showed up at 4 a.m., not ever hearing or seeing Gina. And Gina took Epperly home. But in the beginning of this day made in hell, King drove out to the lake to check on the house, observed by the fishermen under the bright moon entering the lower level. Yet King testified he only ever enters the house through one upstairs door and testified there is only one key. Of which he testified he went out to the Marriott parking lot to get that one and only key from his car to give to Epperly to take the happy and willingly girl Gina to the lake house. Although Robbins contradicts, stating he fiddled with some keys to get in the upstairs door when they arrived. And before King and Robin ever connected, King went with the 3, so now 4. not 3, and ate pancakes for exactly 45 minutes, and then went to the other girl's apartment for exactly 45 minutes, and then picked up Robin about 3:15 a.m. and went to go swimming at the lake house, and once there, never saw or heard the girl with Epperly. A girl King said he only saw once when they walked out of the Marriott and never saw again. Yet he describes Gina wearing a purple bodysuit under white pants. A girl, he says, he did not even know was missing until Tuesday morning when he heard the announcement on the radio. Yet he drove by the abandoned car multiple times, had conversations about her at the Horseshoe Picnic, and visited Fisher with Epperly at his workplace Monday night to learn about the girl. And he never went willingly to the police to tell his story until asked. So can we believe that Gina was alone with Epperly at the lake house? A lake house where neighbors heard car traffic, heard gunshots, 2 different kinds, a boat that left the lake house dock, and on and on and on. Our objective in 1980 was to find Gina's remains, not dissect their lies. Lies run sprints, truth runs marathons, and eventually the sprint comes to an end. 2016 was just the beginning of the final laps of the marathon. The journey helped me understand how being a Christian gives strength when we need it most, those final laps. And just because I am at peace with Gina's death does not mean that once I learned the truth, that I would never speak up about the facts not known that unveil the lies told about my sister. These videos are for one reason only: Gina's voice, finally. For Gina. I will go on record to clearly state that the Hall family would never, and has never, condoned writing about Gina's life, especially from that 1980 perspective, telling only what we call that old composed story. Even my mother, stepmother technically, but we consider her our mom because she raised us, even she did not condone my own writing about Gina. At first upset and worried, how could anyone, even you, Delana, really tell Gina's story without telling about the violence? That old 1980 story. Her personal letter, written in response to another person's recent book and movie deal, included her opinion. She said, in parts, I felt as if you were talking about some other girl, not the sweet Christian girl I called my daughter. And I agreed after our two read the book in March 2020. But I did not agree with her to not write The Miraculous Journey, because how could I ever keep the amazing miraculous experiences of 2016 and 2017 to myself? And the truth needs to be told, and I know what I experienced is hard to wrap your head around. I understand. It was hard for me, and I was living it. I just summarize it all by saying I was lovingly apprehended by God for a reason, and maybe a reason still yet to be known. I know in my heart God has a plan, and one day maybe I will fully understand. Thank you to all who genuinely love Gina and will never, ever let her light be extinguished. Gina's Truth, for Gina.